Welcome in. This is Reality Check with Scott Beason. This is the Thanksgiving edition in the year 2017, and I appreciate you watching the program. Now, let me just go ahead and say, I say it almost every week, this program is teleprompter free, it is makeup free, there is no script, it is recorded to tape, so if you see anything that goes crazy, if my nose is itching or whatever, if I misspeak, which is I'm very apt to do, that's just the way it is and that's just the way it works. There's been no editing to this program, and I think in the last year that I've done it, we've only had to edit out about two things, which was when a leftist in one of my video clips uses a profanity that I missed and the Alabama Cable Network frowns upon me running that. We do have to go back and go through all the rigmarole to get that fixed. So let me just get started and let you know a little bit about where we are. I've got a special guest that's going to be on my program tonight who has been all in the news here in the state of Alabama and frankly nationally over the last couple of weeks. We've talked about the issues surrounding Roy Moore that were kicked off by the Washington Post just a couple of weeks ago when they wrote an article that was alleging misconduct by the judge. Now, let me just go ahead and say right off the bat that my initial reaction to that article was, really? Just a few days before a special election general? You wait until there's no chance to change a name on a ballot. When you know that we're going to be down to a binary decision, you decide to do that. So let me just say right now to the Washington Post and others who are kind of tickled to death with what they're doing, there is no doubt in anyone's mind, no matter which side you're on politically, that this was a political decision. These things were brought out to make a political point for a political reason, and there's no other way around that. Because you're talking about a man that has a 40-year history in public service, and then all of a sudden, right before a special election, general election, these accusations come to light. Now, there are a number of things that are out there, and I want to talk a little bit about those. And I also want to make sure that I've asked people on my radio program that you can hear 5 days a week from 10 to 12 on FM 101.1, or you can go to the internet on 101wyde.com and take part in that program. And I wanted those people that listen to my radio show to be able to take part, to say some of the things, to give me ideas for questions to ask Roy Moore for the conversation that we would have, because so many people in the state of Alabama are struggling one way or another because of these allegations. And I thought if there was any way that I could get Roy Moore on the program, people could listen to his answers and make a decision. So with that said, my guest tonight on the program is none other than Judge Roy Moore. Judge, how are you?
Thank you.
Good. I appreciate you being on the program. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And I started out the program just saying, how did we get here? This has been a very, very hard-fought campaign for you from the very, very beginning. It was clear that the Washington establishment, Mitch McConnell, were not for you. I had Paul Reynolds, who is the Republican National Committee man for the state of Alabama, on my program last week, and he relayed a conversation that he had with the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, where they made very clear to him, the National Committee woman, and the chairwoman of the state, that they were going to decide who was elected our U.S. Senator. They advised them to stay out of it, but they pointed out that they knew better and they weren't going to mess up and they were going to have their person and they were going to spend millions of dollars. Now, they had to spend way more than they thought in an effort to try to beat you in a Republican primary, in the Republican primary runoff, trying to save Luther Strange, and that failed, which I would admit I'm sure roiled Mitch McConnell and put a burr under their saddles. So that's where we are when we kind of get into this general election with Doug Jones, who frankly, at the start of this campaign, had no chance. This is a very, very red state. Doug Jones is arguably one of the most liberal Democrat candidates Alabama has ever seen, whether it's from pro-life issues to believing that transgender should be in the military, all the way down to believing that my 14-year-old daughter, that there should be boys in her locker room if they decided yesterday that they're really a girl. Doug Jones is for those things. So would you agree that this is probably one of the most diametrically opposed when it comes to philosophy, politically, campaigns that Alabama's seen in a long time?
We are, and it's been a long campaign, like you said. It's been a fight from the beginning when McConnell said that he wanted somebody that basically he could manage in the Senate. Well, I really resent that, and for the people of the state of Alabama, that shouldn't be. We shouldn't have a senator that's managed by somebody else. We should vote our conscience for the people of Alabama and for what we stand for. Well, it started there, and it got into after the primary, then the runoff, and approximately $30-point-something million was spent against me, and they brought out everything. They attacked me. I didn't have nearly that much money. It made it difficult for me to raise money. They threatened people that were talking with us on social media and other things, and it was a very difficult race. But then I got into the general, and when they first got out that I was 11 points behind, that started this conversation, and that was only a few weeks ago. We've simply faced everything. We've been fighting in politics for Alabama for 40 years, as you said. I've run 5 statewide campaigns, including this one. And
let me stop just one second. When you're running against the Washington Republican establishment, Mitch McConnell, Karl Rove, right? All those guys with all the political firepower, all the opposition research, all of the things that are at their disposal, and they're more than willing to use. I mean, I know personally people who wanted to run for this seat and were told, hey, if any consultant who helps somebody, they're going to be blackballed. We'll put you out of business, basically. You won't get any work with national Republicans. I mean, they made all sorts of threats. They told people all these things. So they were willing to go as far as they could go. And none of the allegations that have arisen in the last 3 weeks came up with millions of dollars being spent. They probably know your dog's name when you were a little boy, and how many puppies you had, and they know everything about you, and none of this stuff comes out. So we move forward, and the Washington Post runs a story that has multiple allegations, and the rest of the mainstream media immediately picks it up. Mitch McConnell, John McCain, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I know I say it because I say it on my radio show, Flaky Flake, the Tiny Titan in Tennessee, Cochran, all those guys, they weigh in almost immediately with this phraseology that sounds like somebody else wrote it for them, and they're like, Roy Moore's got to go, just got to go. Which I thought all seemed very orchestrated, like they were almost admitting that they were a part of all this happening. I don't know if you felt that way, but I kind of felt the Washington Republicans are all in. So after 40 years of public service, and you get an attack like this, and I think the Washington Post and the left and the Washington Republicans knew they had to try to go with something really, really bad. Yeah. They decided, okay, in Alabama, what can we attack somebody with that they can't defend themselves over that will sound so bad that people will just have just be kind of repulsed and hopefully don't go out and vote for Judge Roy Moore. And so that's how they came up with these allegations, in my opinion. Now, I don't know all the details, and that's why I wanted to have you on the program. But when this first started, what was your first response? I mean, you had to be shocked right off the bat.
I was definitely shocked. I mean, this is something depressed. I mean, it's hard on my family. It's hard on my wife. It's hard on my children. It's hard on my mother, who's 91 years old.
Right.
And this is something that through 5 statewide campaigns and 3 county campaigns, after years and years of being in public office, Chief Justice twice, a circuit judge, a deputy district attorney. I've served in office, and I've been examined by about everybody you could imagine, attorney generals.
How many times? And I think people forget about this because the Judicial Inquiry Commission looked into
three times.
The DA's Association,
Court of the Judiciary, the State Bar. I was examined by the State Bar, and they tried to get my license early on. This has been going on for many years because I did not take part in the system that they had. I stood against a corrupt system. I stood for the acknowledgement of God, for the Constitution of Alabama and the United States, and stood against corruption in our court system. And they've been attacked, and once the Attorney General appointed somebody to examine me and discover anything that they could find about me. And this went on for months, and they didn't find anything. So, this was a shock to me. And after having overcome $30 million, after overcome tax on the foundation that I started.
Well, I remember the Washington Post wrote all sorts of articles saying you were taking money that wasn't owed to you, and you'd been paid all this money and all this stuff. Those all turned out to be false.
All false.
And
but
people
then
forget that.
They attacked my son.
That's right.
They attacked my family. They attacked my wife. Of course, they attacked me on the money I got, the salary they said I got, which I didn't get. They said
You'd been
I got
glad to have gotten it.
I would have liked,
because I was going to borrow some money from you.
Then they said, since you didn't get it, you should pay taxes on it. And that was kind of ridiculous. But this has gone on for years and years and years. And this was a complete shock out of left field. And it came the day after they said I was 11 points ahead. And this is a shock to the Democrats. They saw a seat in Alabama that they could take, and they had the support of some in the Washington establishment that doesn't really care. They want who they can handle.
Right, and I saw a report, I think it was today, that the House and Senate have a fund.
That's right.
That has spent at least $17 million in the last 20 years dealing with sexual harassment allegations by different congressmen and senators. And I'm shocked that we didn't know that. I'm shocked that I never have heard that. And you would think that would be something that someone in Washington, D.C. would say, hey, wait a minute, we ought not be doing this. So I would really love to ask Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and some others. And so you've been covering all this up for all these years. Where is your responsibility? But I'm sure they'll say they don't have any.
And at the same time, they were supporting people that had been found guilty of this stuff or admitted it, and they were coming and saying that wouldn't seat me. Well, that's against the Constitution. It's against the vote of the people of Alabama.
That most of those guys have never read the Constitution.
Well,
that may be an unfair accusation, but I have found plenty of lawyers and plenty of elected officials that have never even breezed through it one time just to see what it says.
Well, if they have read it, they're not following it on many occasions, and that's simply when you put power above your principle.
Right, absolutely. So let's start with, and I'm just going to go ahead and go through a couple. The Washington Post. It was a long story that got this started, and I think we can probably dismiss. Well, it's interesting. Let me tell you about this. I was watching one of the cable networks, and they were making this broad statement about how many accusations there were. So I tried to go out, and I went to some news people, I went to other radio people, and I said, look, help me get to this number. I think their number was 9 people. And they just keep using this number of accusations. Well, I go through the articles, and basically I decided that Ms. Miller, Ms. Gibson, Ms. Beason there's not even really an accusation there, other than that they claimed that they might have gone out with you at one time. They were clearly of age, etc. So I just swept those away. That's not a real accusation. Then you have a couple other people that might be corroborating, but when you boil it all down, it really comes down to Beverly Nelson, who I have referred to as the yearbook incident or the annual incident, just so people can remember, and then also Miss Korfman. And that's two I really think it boils down to, Lee Korfman and Beverly Nelson. So I really want to go through the Beverly Nelson stuff first. Beverly Nelson makes the accusation that she knew you. She's the only one that provides any proof. She has a press conference with Gloria Allred and says, Roy Moore came to this restaurant all the time, sat at the counter, and he talked to me all the time. I brought my yearbook right before Christmas, and he signed it, and that is what she used as proof to put you at a certain place in a certain point of time. Then she says one night after work that there was misconduct. Because I really don't want to get into it, because I think a lot of this has been debunked when it comes to Ms. Nelson. But what if y'all put out and said that changes her story or refutes her story?
Well, throughout this, on these two women, I don't know them. I've never known them. I've never met them to my knowledge. I later found out that Beverly Nelson had a case in front of my court in 1999, but I don't know them. I've never spoken to them, and certainly I didn't do anything to them. I think there's been a lot of information released just today earlier today about that incident, about the fact that the Hickory House, I didn't know where the Hickory House was. I don't ever remember going to a Hickory House there, and they've got several police officers who attended regularly and said that I didn't.
So now there's police officers who are there regularly.
There's also waitresses.
And would a police officer know if an assistant district attorney was eating there a lot?
They would know, and also the waitresses that came out and said that she didn't work there.
So now there are multiple waitresses who say, look, we worked there during the time that this allegation was made, and we don't know who this lady is.
And then there's the annual.
Well, the yearbook
we've asked for that we haven't gotten.
The yearbook thing is a big one, and I want to talk about that right after this break. We got to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about the yearbook or the annual. It's always odd to me what people call the different things. I think I call them yearbooks.
Yearbooks.
We're going to take a break. This is Scott Beason's Reality Check. Roy Moore is my guest. We'll be right back.
Head to Carl Cannon. Their dream team makes it real easy to do business.
This is Tyler Herron at Carl Cannon Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC. Did you see behind me? I got one of our Z71 Chevrolet Silverados. We have many like it. This is actually a Tuscany truck. It has a lift kit and the aftermarket wheels and tires. We are a Tuscany dealer. Come down and see us in Jasper, Alabama, and Carl Cannon Boulevard off exit 65. Or you can give us a call at 205-384-5561.
Other dealers can't? Cannon can.
Carl Cannon, Chevy Buick GMC Cadillac in Jasper.
CallTheShield.com is the solution to pest and termite problems. APS shields your home from termite infestation, unwanted pests, mold and water intrusion, sagging floors, and unhealthy lawns. Visit CallTheShield.com to schedule your free evaluation. That's CallTheShield.com to schedule your free evaluation. Alabama Professional Services. Protection for your home.
Every day, students at Bevel State Community College tell their own stories. They tell them through the accomplishments they achieve, the choices they make for career success, and through recommendations they share with friends. With 5 locations serving 7 counties and tuition lower than 4-year colleges, now is the time to start writing your own success story. Your story starts at Bevel State.
Didn't myself.
Welcome back in, everybody. This is Scott Beason's Reality Check. Like I said, this is the Thanksgiving 2017 edition. Judge Roy Moore is my guest, and we're just going through some of these allegations, these accusations, because my purpose for having him on the program was to give the people of Alabama a place they could go to see him in person without a bunch of liberal reporters screaming like a bunch of yapping dogs asking dumb questions. And when I say dumb questions, I mean questions on the order of, hey, have you quit beating your wife kind of questions, where if you say yes, they'll condemn you. If you say no, they're going to condemn you. I just want you to know the truth. I want to know the truth, and I think this is the best way to do that, and especially with some of the input that I've gotten from people who are legitimate news people. I'm a commentator, no doubt about that, and from listeners. People who listen to my radio program wanting to know, wanting to have the answers, because people of Alabama care about truth and they want to get to the bottom of it. It matters to them, and that's one of the reasons I'm sure you enjoy representing a state like Alabama, because Alabamians have Christian values. They care about morality. They care about truth, and personally I think that's one of the reasons so many other states and people in the media want to bash us all the time, is because we do have some values.
Alabama's very special. I've lived here all my life. It's special not only because of all the things you said, it's special because the people are so knowing what's going on. They stand for their rights. In fact, our motto is we dare defend our rights. And they do. And you look, whether it's the Civil War conflict or whether it's a civil rights conflict or the Ten Commandments. People stand in Alabama, and they always have. They have values and principles, which I appreciate. And I've been to other states. I've lived in other states. But Alabama's my home.
Alabama's the best. I've done like you. I've been fortunate enough to travel a number of places around the world, and there is no better place than Alabama. I don't want other people to know it, because if we get overrun with Yankees, they'll mess it up. But anyway, to serious stuff again. The Beverly Nelson stuff, who I'm calling the yearbook or the annual lady. You were saying right before the break that a number of people have come out to argue with or prove that you weren't a regular at some restaurant that she claimed. I think part of the press conference that some of your folks had earlier in the week or earlier today was saying that the business was not even set up to work the way the accusations were made. And then a lot of it, to me, I thought was odd when she had the press conference with Gloria Allred. And Gloria Allred, remember, had press conference with people who were accusing Donald Trump of things. And it was weird because there was a part of the whole press conference. I did think it was weird that the lady called you Ray Moore, which I think was a guy from Jefferson County that I know. But it was focused on this signature in the yearbook, where it was signed Roy Moore. It says something about Christmas. It has the year written twice, and the writing of the year up here in the paragraph does not match the numbers. It wasn't even copied well. And it says Roy Moore, and then it says DA. And that seems to be the one that proves that it was a forgery. And Gloria Allred on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, who clearly would love for Gloria Allred to be right. Wolf Blitzer asks her about if it's a fake. She won't answer. He gives her a second opportunity, like, oh, I know Gloria didn't understand me, and she still won't say that they haven't forged it. So to me, that shows that it's a forgery. But tell me a little bit, what was the DA story? And I think the signatures were from different years and all kind of stuff.
Well, after Ms. Nelson said that she didn't have any contact with me, we found a court record where she had a divorce filed before me. And she went through a lower court judge for the immediate hearing, and then came to me, and after several months, I think it was, she asked for it to be dismissed. And my secretary signed a dismissal order with my name.
And she might not have seen you.
No,
so they're doing motions and stuff.
But everybody in a divorce case knows who the judge is. You don't go through a divorce in any county without knowing who a judge is, because that's just what they want to know. Right. And I understand that. But she signed my name, my secretary did, and it's on a joint dismissal. And then signed /D.A.
Now, why would your secretary sign D.A.?
That was her initials. Deborah
so
Adams.
It's like my secretary used to do when I was in the Senate. If she was signing a letter for me, she would put her initials at the end.
She would put her initials, and she printed D.A. Okay. And that was what was supposedly on this annual back in 1977, and it would have been very odd for my secretary, which I didn't have then and didn't know then, to come and notarize my signature then. I was a deputy district attorney, but I never put DA because that's for district attorney, and that's where they got D.A. And just mistaking that it
they thought it meant district attorney,
and it didn't. But in any event, I've consistently said, without addressing specifics on these things, that I did not know these two women.
So you definitely didn't know Beverly Nelson.
I didn't know Beverly Nelson, and I didn't know
Lee Korfman. And I never dated underage women, and I never engaged in sexual misconduct with anybody. I mean, you have to understand, I was deputy district attorney, then the circuit judge. I go by the law. You don't. It's very hypocritical to go by, there's law and you enforce it, and then you can go and violate it. You just don't do that, and I didn't do that, and that's what is being alleged. It's very hurtful, not only to my family but to my reputation, because this is something that's you just don't do. No, absolutely not. So when you go through these things, or when I go through these things, and I see that Beverly Nelson's story has been, in my opinion, debunked. Her stepson says he doesn't believe her. Now you have law enforcement officers saying they didn't see you there. All this information is out. Gloria Allred won't back it up. I think that goes away. And so we're left with really this story from Lee Korfman. Now, a number of people that listen to the show, and before we get into Lee Korfman, one of the big questions was, do you plan to pursue any legal action with defamation against any of these people at Washington Post or anybody, regardless? Because some people believe that shows that you're serious about proving your innocence.
We're talking about the Washington Post. We're talking about the women involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes time to develop a case and file a case, because you just don't go file a case without some proof. And we're getting proof. We're getting things. In fact, today we had a conference, a press conference, where a lot of this was brought out. And we'll continue to do that. And there are things coming out in the future which I can't talk about. So I'm not going to address specific things that are coming out, because that's for investigators, and that it takes time. We've been in this just a little over a week, and it takes time to find out people that you don't know, where they're from, when they left their job, when they're gone, and you can't find them.
Well, you definitely don't want to go out and say something that's not true.
And you don't want to say
because then they would rip you up and say you lied the whole time.
Right.
It would only take you messing up once for them to say you lied the whole time.
But
they can mess it up.
Amazing thing, Scott, about this is that you know, when we bring out facts and the media takes an interview and then won't print it because it's not corroborated, I ask, why did they print the first article, which was not corroborated? It's completely unfounded, uncorroborated, unsubstantiated, and yet they print it without regard to who it hurts and how it hurts. You know, I have a great regard for women. I regard women's rights. I'm just, you know, that's what I've stood for in my business as a deputy district attorney. I've prosecuted rape trials. I've prosecuted all kind of trials. And when I feel like somebody's attacking me for taking away women's rights, there's another side to it. If they are allowed to do things without any substantiation or any proof, and put the burden of defense on the person, that's a terrible burden, I'll tell you.
Oh, well, you can't disprove a negative.
That's right. You can't disprove a negative. You can't remember what you did 40 years ago, but you remember what you didn't do. And I'll tell you, I didn't have any wrongful relationships, any engage in any sexual misconduct with an underage woman.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that is a big deal is people are bringing up, and I saw somebody on MSNBC, this whole idea of being, and which I think has also been debunked, but I promised people that I wanted them to be able to have one place they could go to, and it is that Roy Moore was banned from the Gadsden Mall. Now we know from multiple people, I think the manager of the mall, saying that was never real. Even yesterday I saw an MSNBC reporter repeat that again, probably knowing it's not true. So you were telling me a minute ago that y'all have given facts to the press, to the mainstream media, and they decided not to say anything about them. So they know more than most people do, but they want to keep regular people in the dark. Well, I think it proves they have an agenda.
I think for the people watching, and if they can remember back 40 years, even then, if a district attorney deputy would have been banned from the mall, that would have been on the front page of the paper. Because
the main news guy that everybody knew in that county, that I've heard his name drop multiple times, he would have lit you up.
Oh, yeah.
What was the guy's name again? Do you remember Fitz?
Yeah.
Fitz is the name I've been told.
Yeah, he was the main one then with WAAX, I believe. And but this is ridiculous to assume. And now that the mall manager and others, police officers and others, have come out and said I wasn't banned, just because somebody thought maybe I was banned or comes forward and says I was banned doesn't make it so. And it's completely against logic and reason.
Absolutely.
And people should see that.
One of the other ones that's brought out a lot is the Hannity interview. Now, I have heard multiple people, even some folks who claim to be Republican, maybe a little conservative, saying that you have not denied these charges strong enough. Now, I want to say a couple of things that you said. In the Sean Hannity interview, you said that the allegations were completely false and misleading.
That's right.
That seems pretty clear.
Yeah. Completely
false and misleading. You also said that if you abuse a 14-year-old girl, you shouldn't be a Senate candidate.
Right.
You say that. And then so there was, a little bit of, well, he just didn't answer the questions right or whatever. So I want to ask these questions as clear as I can. I've boiled down as many of them as I possibly can to a couple of things, and you have answered them yourself a number of times, but I think it boils itself down to this. Whether it's the Lee Korfman story, which I think we're going to probably find out there's some more holes in her story. I may be speaking out of turn, but I wanted people to be able to see you. I wanted to be able to look in your eyes. I wanted you to be able to tell other people. And here's the questions. I'll make sure I get them right. Did you, Roy Moore, and I sound like a prosecutor, and I'm a geologist, did you ever date or go out with underage women?
No. No.
Have you ever engaged in any sexual misconduct with any person?
No. I mean, it's against the law, and it would be wrong.
Well, let me move on to another question then. Back when you went to Washington, D.C. to visit Mitch McConnell after you won the primary, I want to know a little bit about how that went, and then I want to talk about some of the things, the differences between you and your opponent. I think I've met my obligation on what I've been calling the Roy Moore drama for the past couple of weeks. And I want to talk a little bit about what you would like to do as a U.S. Senator,
sure,
the difference in you and Doug Jones, but I really want to hear how that meeting went with good old Mitch McConnell. We're going to do that right after we take this break. I am Scott Beason. My guest is Judge Roy Moore. This is Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Head to Carl Cannon. Their dream team makes it real easy to do business.
Here at Carl Cannon Chevrolet, we offer a wide variety of vehicles. Trucks is one of our main things that we have here. We offer them that can be dinghy-towed, flat-towed, and we also have vehicles that can tow between 3,500 pounds all the way to 17,500 pounds. So if you need a vehicle that can just take you to church on Sundays or pull the load on Mondays, we've got them all right here for you at Carl Cannon. Been here for 50 years. Come see us in Jasper.
Other dealers can't? Cannon can.
Carl Cannon, Chevy Buick GMC Cadillac in Jasper.
My name is Richard Jaffe. I am the senior partner in the Birmingham, Alabama law firm of Jaffe, Hanley, Wisenant, and Knight. I have been practicing law in the criminal and civil courts in Alabama and across the nation for over 40 years. I've represented thousands of people involved in the civil and criminal justice systems. I would like to invite you to watch and be a part of a new and unique and totally different television show about lawyers and the law, Alabama Justice Lawyering Up. It's going to air every day, but prominently on Tuesday nights, prime time, 9 o'clock p.m., and Thursday nights, 7:30 p.m. During our show, we're going to explore the hottest topics, the most controversial cases, the cases that you view every day, and we are going to bring you different perspectives by bringing in every key player in the civil and criminal justice system: lawyers, judges, prosecutors, detectives, probation officers, victims, experts. We're going to bring this to you so we can explore the different perspectives of Alabama justice and the importance of lawyering up.
From Mobile to Florence, from Auburn to Tuscaloosa, for all your commercial or private paving needs, is Alabama's premier surfacing company. 20 years experience has the equipment and personnel to handle any job anywhere in the state of Alabama. Call 205-648-3117.
Welcome back. My guest is Judge Roy Moore. We spent the first half of the program talking about what I have called the Roy Moore saga in the state of Alabama, just trying to get people up to speed. I promised people that we would have a central point where they could hear him answer a lot of the questions, talk about the accusations, the things we do know, and I think we did that in the first half of the program. Now, the other things I wanted to get to was, Judge, I asked you right before the break, you had a meeting after you won the primary with Mitch McConnell, other Washingtonians, establishment Republicans, and those kind of people. How did that meeting go? Because they had spent $30 million against you, had run ads that were untruthful, and I would not think that I would be the nicest person if I went to that meeting, but you probably, were nicer to them than I might have been.
Well, I'm a forgiving person. And I thought that after they spent $30 million wrongfully, they'd never done this before. $30 million is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And after they cut off my fundraisers, after they had stopped my consultants that had voluntarily come down prior to the election and wanted to represent me, and as soon as I got in it, they called down and stopped them, and they went back to Washington and actually represented my opponent. They had done so many things in this campaign, and we'd won. It was a victory.
Right.
People in Alabama recognized it as victory, and so I went up with great expectations to let them know that I was a forgiving person, and,
right,
and they were very nice. They were very nice. They came around and talked and did things. But as soon as I got back, and as soon as this story came out, immediately, if not before, they dropped me, and they turned against me, and immediately condemned me, and without anything.
So they were able to just look you in the eye,
That's right.
and not even be contrite about, because at least in Montgomery, when one side goes against you and you end up winning the primary, you're not supposed to, they try to make new friends. They're like, okay, well, the old guy that I tried to help when now we want to have a new friend.
Yeah.
And none of that. They were just like, okay, and you go back to Alabama, and then as soon as they get a chance, they try to cut you off and leave you
I think it's more in common sense. Once you spend $30 million and you've done it from the highest levels of government, and the Washington establishment failed. They failed, and they don't take that easy, and they don't stop. If they can defeat you afterwards, some would rather have a Democrat in.
No, I think that's really true. And I don't think Alabamians understand that there are some people in Washington, D.C. I've always said that some of the people at the highest levels in both parties are really just the same people.
It's the same.
And they don't care as long as they can stay in power, as long as they're in charge. They don't have a philosophy.
George Wallace said it many years ago. There's not a dime's worth of difference between them. And sometimes that's very true.
And I disagreed with him many times. Because he's wrong. Yeah. There's not a nickel's worth of difference. I mean, he was off by at least one factor. So what do you think it is? Is it just that a lesson has to be taught to the other Roy Moores that may take on Mitch McConnell's friends? Are they sending a message that says, look, we'll make up things, we'll rip you to shreds if you run against one of our chosen people?
I think the establishment, consisting both of Democrats and Republicans, want to keep the same people in there and to make the same privileges and power that they have and to keep their job, and they don't want what CNN proposed and McConnell said, conservative rebel.
Right. No, I remember that comment.
They didn't want a conservative rebel that they couldn't manage. And, I've just never been manageable. I don't plan to be manageable. And when I go to Washington, I'll take the knowledge of God and the knowledge of the Constitution of the United States to the people there and show them that they've got to follow this document. It's the form of government we have, and it's based upon a particular God. And if it were not, we're going to lose our morality, as we've been losing it. We're going to lose our rights that He's given us.
That we've been losing.
Which we've been losing.
Some people say that if you are elected to the U.S. Senate, these are the people who are trying to be a little pragmatic and say, well, nothing will happen. And frankly, I want to tell some of them that, I really don't want a U.S. Senator that all he can do is bring some dollars back. They're my dollars. I don't care if we put your name on a building anywhere and everywhere. I want somebody to vote right. But do you really believe it is about the Constitution and God and a belief in God, and that those two things, really talking about the Constitution and really talking about God's role in our country, are they so against those ideas? Is that part of it that's driving them too? That they just don't want to hear about the Constitution and God?
And it's about the truth. And Jefferson said long ago that truth was great and would prevail if left to herself. That she's the proper and sufficient antagonist to error and has nothing to fear in the conflict. Unless by human interposition disarmed of natural weapons, free argument and debate. And that's exactly what's going on. Truth would prevail. It's called leadership. And it would prevail. It would help turn the country back. That's what President Trump's doing right now. He's simply coming out with something, and they're trying to divert the attention away from his agenda to the Russian probe, started by the Washington Post.
That's right.
And
there's no truth to that we've seen to this day, and we've been doing it,
that's
a year?
The same thing they're trying to do in this campaign. They're diverting the truth away because they want to start on the, have something else like a Russian probe to divert it from this campaign. Right. There's not been a word from the media about the issues facing our country since this began.
So what are some of the issues? What are the differences between you? Okay, the wall.
Well,
Donald Trump
if
wants
you
to
ask
build
me
a wall.
the difference between myself and Doug Jones, everything. I want a wall. I want to stop illegal aliens.
He just said the other day he can't afford a wall.
That's right. And he thinks that carrying papers is a violation of their civil rights, which, I disagree with. Healthcare. He wants to build Obamacare. I want to repeal Obamacare and repeal the McPherson Act. McPherson Act.
Is that the insurance across state lines?
Yes, and open the state lines to the insurance. Cutting taxes. I want to cut taxes. I want to reduce taxes. I want to change the tax system to go to something you spend.
Like a fair
tax. Well, fair tax or a tax on goods that you purchase. Consumption tax. I want to the military. I'm big in the military because I was in the military for many years, and I understand the military. My opponent, I believe, would not support military expenditures. He's never served in the military.
I've not heard that he's a big
I think the big
supporter of
difference is judicial appointments. I understand the Constitution in a different way than they do. And I understand that it is the supreme law of the land, not what 5 lawyers say on the Supreme Court when they completely contradict the Constitution. There's just so many differences. I believe in rights. They believe in transgender rights. We're talking about women's rights here. Who stands for women's rights? Those that stand for transgender rights and same-sex marriage. That's undermining women, and it's violating children's rights. And I believe in those things. I believe in traditional values that Alabamians stand for, and I'll take these to Washington, D.C., and I'll stand for them.
Well, it's interesting for some of the different groups. The old AL.coms, the old mainline newspapers have come out and attacked you for a number of things, CNN, MSNBC, and those things were kind of bubbling up, and they were bubbling up in the runoff primary against Luther Strange. And I made a statement on this program and also on the radio multiple times. If you're an elected official in the state of Alabama, and you have certain things that you disagree with Roy Moore on, whether it's the Constitution, whether it's the impact of Sharia law on the United States, whether it's transgender, please let us know as Alabamians what those things are, and make sure that I get you on the record as disagreeing. Because when I take them one by one, the things that you have said and the things that the press has attacked you for, when I take them one by one and I go out and ask Alabamians agree with you. And you understand these issues. And I don't understand why the press, even in this state and across the country, can be so to the left, diametrically opposed to the things that the country was founded on and the things that we all believe in, the things that make our communities a great place to live. And it does get frustrating that they just simply say, well, he's a bad person because he doesn't believe right. And then when you ask them, well, what is that he believes, they don't want to talk about it because they know most people agree with you. And a lot of people in Alabama who have issues with you don't really know what you believe. They just know they're not supposed to be for you because of the press's impact and the things they say. So Doug Jones is arguably one of the most liberal Democrats to run for office in the state. I understand he's a decent guy. That doesn't mean that I want to send him to Washington. And so we're going to have to take a break here in just a second. We're going to have one more segment of the program left. But I do want to give you the opportunity when we come back to talk about some specifics, things that you want to do, because that has been lost for the entire month of November. Probably not by accident, that the press doesn't want to talk about the differences in you the differences in Doug Jones. What you really want to do, and we'll go over that again, because they know in the state of Alabama, if it's just about the two philosophies, it's just about two different visions for America, that Roy Moore wins. And they know that. So some of this stuff has to come out. So let's take a real quick break. This is Scott Beason in Reality Check. My guest is Judge Roy Moore. You don't want to miss the last segment.
Head to Carl Cannon. Their dream team makes it real easy to do business.
How you doing today, folks? I'm Jim Fincher with Carl Cannon, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac. Listen, we have new, we have pre-owned, and we have certified pre-owned. So if you're looking for a good quality car at affordable pricing, come on down to Carl Cannon at 299 Carl Cannon Boulevard in Jasper, Alabama. Or just give us a quick call at 205-384-5561. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Other dealers can't? Cannon can.
Carl Cannon, Chevy, Buick, GMC, Cadillac in Jasper.
Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock is the new time for Game Day TV. I'm Jerry Young. I'll be bringing you some updates on high school right here on ACN. And joining me, everybody knows who Max is. Max Howard.
I'll be talking a little college football. We do that every week. We're going to cover the top games in the SEC. We'll try to touch on some of the other statewide programs, but Game Day TV covers SEC first. We'll be here every Tuesday night. Join us.
Right here on Game Day TV on ACN.
Head to Carl Cannon. Their dream team makes it real easy to do business.
This is Tyler Herron at Carl Cannon Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC. Did you see behind me? I got one of our Z71 Chevrolet Silverados. We have many like it. This is actually a Tuscany truck. It has a lift kit and the aftermarket wheels and tires. We are a Tuscany dealer. Come down and see us in Jasper, Alabama, and Carl Cannon Boulevard off exit 65. Or you can give us a call at 205-384-5561.
Other dealers can't? Cannon can.
Carl Cannon, Chevy Buick GMC Cadillac in Jasper.
Every day, students at Bevel State Community College tell their own stories. They tell them through the accomplishments they achieve, the choices they make for career success, and through recommendations they share with friends. With 5 locations serving 7 counties and tuition lower than 4-year colleges, now is the time to start writing your own success story. Your story starts at Bevel State.
To the program, Scott Beason's Reality Check. My guest has been Roy Moore, and now for this last segment, we're actually going to bring in his wife, Kayla. But before we get started, and Kayla, I know you're like, don't do it, but this is impromptu. Like I said, it's live to tape, so I appreciate you being on the show. But Judge, before we bring Kayla in, the rumor is out that Anthony Kennedy, who is a Supreme Court justice, is thinking about retiring. Now, that rumor came out in the summertime, but he is a pretty elderly gentleman. And there is talk that it could happen in the next couple of weeks, maybe before Christmas, maybe before Thanksgiving actually occurs. That would open up another Supreme Court justice spot for Donald Trump to make an appointment. Now, that's the easy part. I think Donald Trump is doing a very good job. He did a great job with Gorsuch. The problem is confirmation in the Senate. And I personally think this is one of the solid black lines, a bold line between you and Doug Jones. You believe, and I'm going to speak for you, you believe that the Constitution is to be interpreted as it was written and as it was intended when it was written.
Right.
I would just about guess, I'm not asked Doug Jones, but I would just about guess, considering the things I've read that he said, that he believes in a living document and all this kind of stuff. Right. And I know that people on the left care about federal judges because the federal judges can make laws for them that they can never pass through the House or the Senate. So am I being fair? Is that an important thing for the country?
Very fair. And I think this vacancy is probably one of the most important vacancies that's occurred, because he has been the swing vote. And he's been liberal on creation of rights, like sodomy, like same-sex marriage. He's written opinions. And we need somebody to guide the proper vote in this thing to a judge that will uphold the Constitution according to its original intent. Scalia, bless his soul, was one such judge. And he's gone, and we got a good replacement. But now this is a chance to turn our country back to conservative values and a Constitution which governs the law and not the court governing the Constitution.
Right. And in every Senate spot makes a huge difference.
Everyone.
And considering how close this is very, very, very important. So for those people who would say, well, Mitch McConnell doesn't like him, John McCain doesn't like him, Flaky Flake doesn't like him, if you have one vote in the next year, one chance to cast a vote, confirming a conservative Supreme Court justice would change the direction of the country for decades.
And I think I can have a voice in that, because I do understand we've got people on the Judicial Committee that haven't been judges. And that's not bad necessarily,
Right.
but I do know the Constitution, and I do know how judges violate that Constitution and put themselves above. When they get up to such a high level, they think that they can make the law, but that's against the separation of powers and checks and balances. They don't make the law. They interpret the law. And if they interpret it against the Constitution, then they put themselves above it.
I would love to have someone there who would ask a nominee, if you make a ruling that is against the written word of the Constitution, what should the states do?
That's right.
And I know what your answer is, but that's another whole issue for another day. We'll get you back. Kayla, thank you for being on, and I appreciate you coming out. I know this whole controversy has had to be tough on the family, but if you don't mind, these last few minutes of the show, if you'll just tell a little bit about y'all's family, not necessarily that it's been tough or what, but just y'all's family in general, how long you've been married, just the whole experience of 40 years in public office, the ups and downs, just talk from the heart.
This is probably the ugliest politics that I've ever seen in my life, and I think that these people who are doing it don't realize that they're not only affecting a race or my husband and myself, but we have children. And yes, they're grown, but they also have children. And I have grandchildren. We have 5 granddaughters, and they're small, and they're not allowed to watch TV anymore. They're not allowed to, they're having to be very secluded right now because of all of this.
Right.
They're not just, and they're hurting the people of Alabama because they shouldn't have to be subjected to this ridiculous political thing that they're doing, and everyone knows that it's nothing but a pure distraction.
Right. There were a lot of Alabamians who immediately knew or thought or felt in their gut that something was up. But the powers that be, like I said at the very start of the program, they picked something so bad that they knew. And this is what makes me angry about it. And I appreciate you coming on and being so straightforward and answering very direct questions. I don't think anybody can say that you didn't answer them. But the fact that they are putting the people in Alabama in this quandary where they're trying to say to an Alabamian, if you're moral, if you're a good person, you will vote in a way that we would like you to. And a lot of it's coming from people who I don't agree with their morals, I don't agree with their worldview, I don't agree with all the things they've tried to do, I don't agree with the things they're trying to do for the country, but they know that people in Alabama care, and they know that people in Alabama are good people, and they want to do the right thing. And I think it's that effort to try to twist Alabamians, to make them do something that they want them to do that really angers me and hurts me in my soul, because I care about Alabamians, I love about Alabamians, and they want to use our goodness against us. And I think that is one of the things. And if I was in your position with my family directly involved, it would be twice as bad. I don't know if I would be able to take it as well as y'all have been able to take it.
Well, I will say that they have gone into all of our family and friends and people that we've known over the last 40 years. People can attest to it. They've sent messages to me. What do I do? The press is calling me. They showed up at my door. They've gone through all our records. They pulled records from the courthouse. I mean, this is that opposition research. That they do.
I remember when I ran for the Senate one time, they found out the guy I got in a fight with in high school.
There you go.
I mean, they don't really leave any stone unturned.
They've contacted people that I was in Vietnam with, people I was in high school with over 50 years ago. It's unbelievable.
And the reason why they do it is because they want to divert attention away from how ultra-liberal our opponent is.
And I don't know if I've given a fair enough amount of time on the issues, and I think you make a great point that they want to divert the attention away from the real political race, the real decision that has to be made. Exactly. Because I've not heard anyone in 3 weeks talk about the possible Supreme Court nominee.
Now, I'll tell you what they don't do, too. They're not fair. They talk to people that give good recommendations, that say good things, and they don't print those. And if you ever had anybody that you crossed anyway, whether in court, as a judge, and judges get some opposition there, or as a district attorney deputy, that gets opposition, or just in general politics. Chief Justice, if I ever signed an opinion that offended anybody, they find them and then they quote them.
Well, that's a good point, because one of the questions they keep pointing out, that, and the left tries to say, or the press tries to say, well, there can't be anything nefarious going on because no one's paid anybody anything. Now, I don't know what happens afterwards, but one of the most powerful things in human nature is revenge.
That's right.
And no one's asking, because my understanding is when a judge runs for office or for higher office, that just about, not everybody, but a good number of people that were ruled against, whether it's a divorce case or a criminal case or whatever, they now think, hey, this is my shot. This is now a time I can, or maybe a friend of theirs was ruled against, and they can say, this is my chance to get back at somebody who I think did the wrong thing.
To say something negative.
Is that pretty common?
Just to say something negative. And that's all this is about. Somebody says something negative. Well, I saw him do this. I saw him do that. I think he's this way. I think he's that way. And that's enough for them.
And it gets reported as fact.
Print it in the paper.
Well,
but they won't present people like the former YMCA director who saw me. I didn't remember him. And he said, I'm YMCA director. And they asked me this question, and I answered it, and they didn't like it, so they didn't print it.
I've been there before.
Yeah.
I've done long interviews before where they didn't like it, and they didn't print it. So what are y'all's plans for the next couple of weeks? I mean, over Thanksgiving, y'all going to spend time with the family?
Well, we're going to spend time with the family. Our son's coming home from the United States Military Academy, and I'll have my 3 boys there and my daughter there, and their children, the grandchildren, and Thanksgiving special time. Thank God for many blessings He's given us. And then, of course, Alabama's going to play Auburn, or Auburn's going to play Alabama, whichever way you want to look at it. And that's an exciting time in our state, and people wait for that. And then we stay on the campaign. I'll be back on the campaign even before that time. But, I will enjoy those times.
Well, good deal. So there's only a couple minutes left in the program, and in the first half of the program, I know had to be a little uncomfortable just discussing things that you were very clear in denying, and I think that's what the people of Alabama wanted to hear about. And I think I've gone through almost all of my questions, so I want to give you the last couple of minutes just to make your case. I mean, so many people said, I want to hear from Judge Moore. You've got a camera here, you got a program here, we got a couple minutes. What do you want the people of Alabama to know about this saga, about you, and about the direction you want to take the country?
I have denied these allegations as clearly and as forcefully as I can. I want to get back to the campaign. I want to get back to an understanding of the issues in this campaign. If they don't see the difference between myself and my opponent, then what's an election all about? Is it about feeling? What people say with unsubstantiated, unfounded allegations that they haven't proven, haven't offered any proof for? Or is it about the issues in the case? They need to know the difference between myself and Doug Jones. I'm not going to cut my opponent. I don't do that in advertisements or anywhere else. But there is a difference.
Because back in the primary, in the runoffs, I remember you telling me one time that you weren't going to say anything negative, etc., and I thought,
I'll just say there's a big difference, and they need to know that difference, and they need to know it for their good. And I will represent the people of Alabama as I have in the past. I'll stand for what I believe, and I'll stand for the Constitution and the acknowledgement of God. That's one thing you don't hear politicians talk about. They don't talk about morality, because they don't know where morality comes from anymore. And when you don't talk about morality, you get what you've got in society here. Division, you've got terrible crimes, they're growing. It's all about abuse, it's about this, it's about that. But right and wrong comes from a particular God, and we need to acknowledge that God.
Absolutely. You want to ask people for their support? There's your camera.
I do. Well, I would appreciate their support, and also to remember Thanksgiving here. This is a time to be thankful to God, and thank you for our country and our state, and particularly the state of Alabama, and particularly our football team. So
you're taking a side. You're not wishy-washy. You're taking a side.
I couldn't do it.
I'm taking a side, no doubt. So right here before the Iron Bowl and Thanksgiving, Roll Tide. Thank you for watching the program. This has been Scott Beason's Reality Check. Judge Moore, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Kayla, thank you for being on. And I wish y'all a happy Thanksgiving also.
Same to you.
We'll see y'all next week.